so let's start the show. Let's start the show!
Hey, we're doing a show.
Hey, watch him! With Dan and Tony! Hey, watch him! With Dan and Tony! It's Hey, watch him, yeah!
We're back. It's Dan and
Tony!
the name of the show is Hate Watching, where we watch terrible movies and then talk about them for overly long and give our opinions, which might occasionally be funny, but in most cases will be completely irrelevant.
I think in all cases they're completely irrelevant. Even if they're funny, they're not relevant.
So this week we're doing my pick, which is Mac and Me from
Woo!
1988 or 89. One of the 2 years.
Sure.
Seems like I saw a different time period. And this is one of those great movies that has 0 stars on Rotten Tomatoes. That means that every single one of the reviewers hated it.
Yeah, which, I mean, they're right.
Are they right?
Dan, did you like this movie?
I didn't like this movie. I loved this movie.
What?
Because the last 2 movies we did Gotti and we did Benjamin Button. Who's afraid of Benjamin Button? We're afraid of Benjamin Button because we sat through that movie. This movie is like 93 minutes. It gets in there. It does its thing. Nothing makes sense.
No, not a single thing.
In a very loose way, the plot makes an amount of sense. Like, everyone just does stuff based on information they don't have.
Yeah,
Things just sort of happen. But at least things happen. And at least people say things. And you're
True.
taken on a journey. And there's a lot to unpack on this movie. And
Yes,
it is especially terrible and a hilarious. It's like your classic movie that's good for all the bad reasons,
Yes, it is. It was
And
beautiful.
after the last 2 movies we sat through, this felt pleasant. It felt enjoyable. It felt like you were watching people trying to do something.
Oh, there was lots of trying in this movie. They tried really hard.
So, what did you think, Tony?
I will give you that as a juxtaposition to the other films that we've recently watched, this is a very different feeling. And I didn't walk away, wanting to smash my head inside my door, right? But I did walk away thinking, what in the world did I just watch?
Yes.
How did somebody edit this together and be like, this is something we can release to the people? This is a good package.
I really, if anyone hasn't seen it, it's like the most derivative ripoff of E.T. ever. Even like down to like the movie poster where it's like the Mac's head and the kid in the moon, which I didn't compare it to the E.T. poster, but I'm sure it's almost exactly the same.
It's got to be similar.
And the beats are very, it's got the same beats.
But also just like they missed a little bit. It's like they were trying to hit the beats, but they were just like a little slow on some, and then some were like too fast, and it's just like, why? Nothing feels coherent here.
No, nothing felt coherent, and that's the glory of it. Is these were just filmmakers who wanted to get out there, make a film. They made a film. It had special effects of a sort. It had actors of a sort. It had sponsors. It had everything.
All of the pieces individually lined up for them having a hit. Like this should have. Okay. Let me.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Now you're going
a little bit
to an area I would not have gone.
Okay, but you're playing on the nostalgia. When did E.T. come out? Like 10 years before this?
Oh, I don't think 10 years.
Not quite.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, keep going. I'm going to look up E.T. real quick.
So, because I read an interview that the director did, or the producer, excuse me, not the director, the producer, and his whole thing was like, we need an E.T. for the new generation. So there had to have been some sort of gap in there.
82.
82. So, okay.
5 or 6 years.
So really not a new generation. Now I think this guy's a total idiot. It's a new generation 3 days later. But I mean, they have the space elements, aliens. People loved aliens in the 90s. Aliens were huge. People were so interested, and they got them all wrong so badly everywhere. But I mean, you had an incredible soundtrack lined up. I don't. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
You mean
later.
the songs? You mean the songs or
Yes.
the soundtrack? You liked all those songs.
I liked all the songs, but I loved the score, the music, the score itself, unreal.
Which is like Alan Silvestri, I think his name is.
Same guy
And-
that did Back to the Future, right?
Oh, I didn't do my full research on him, but
Okay.
I was reading things and they were like, he did this, he did. I mean, he was
He's
he
good.
was one step down from John Williams.
Yeah.
So they paid the money and he was like, I'm making an ET movie. He like stole everything he could from John Williams.
And it was great. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I will say, as much as I did like the actual songs themselves, they didn't fit the movie. But
No.
independent of the movie, I was like, I could jam out to this soundtrack and have a great summer.
Well, the thing, I mean, we'll go into it at the end, but this whole movie it's a Frankenstein. So what it is they, they hired essentially someone to do ET music. They hired, they made a script that was ET. They, had them design a creature and all the great product placement it was all magically Frankenstein together, thinking that if you have all these pieces, they'll fit together in this perfect puzzle, which of course they fit together to make this gigantic mess. And, of course, a commercial nightmare disaster. So,
Yeah.
All those, and that just shows you, look who's got the code.
Oh.
Poor Coney baby. Yeah, it just shows that when you put that Frankenstein together, you end up with Frankenstein, who is a giant problem. What's going on, baby dog? What is happening? I know you're wearing a cone. She's wearing a cone, and she's not happy.
Oh, I get it. Every time I wear a cone, I'm very upset about it. I guess
So, yes.
I agree. It's a total Frankenstein, but on paper, all of those things should come together to make a blockbuster. It's like somebody read a recipe, but then has never cooked before, and they didn't follow the steps of the recipe. They just looked at the ingredients and were like, okay, we just throw some of this, we throw some of this, and then your meal tastes terrible, but you have all the right ingredients. That's how I feel about this movie.
Let's pause for 1 second. I gotta
Absolutely.
see what's going on with you.
Aw.
Are you okay? What time is it? It's 10:21. What's happening? She's not happy.
Oh no.
What's going on, baby?
Do you want to take her out?
What's going on? I can't take her out of the cone. I can't take you out of the cone. I know how much you want out of the cone.
What's the cone on for?
She scratches her eyes and then gets like a little ulcer on there.
Oh,
And so we can't let her scratch her eyes anymore.
got it.
Are you just going to sit? Can you just sit here? Let me get her some water. Maybe it's water. Oh,
Okay.
hold on a second. Okay.
After these messages, we'll be right back. 90s thing. Imagine you and me. I think about you day and night. It's only right to think about the girl you love and hold her tight. So happy together.
It's not water. She's just unhappy. So we're just going to have an unhappy dog sitting next to me.
That's okay. The video
Yeah.
podcast people are going to love it.
So yes, I agree. No, actually, I disagree. I mean, that's the thing is a real creative thing is not just about piling a bunch of stuff together.
Well, sure.
When does that ever work? You actually have to have something there. You can't just be trying to remake something with a lesser budget and there's no new ideas here.
Sure.
That's the whole thing.
Well, did you see the interview with the director who said that when he was hired there was no script?
Yes.
So, I mean, it makes sense. They put all the pieces, and then they were like, okay, you know what? Script is the least important thing. People are going to love it. It's about a kid and an alien. That's huge right now. Go do your thing. I mean, now that's a bad idea.
It's just, yes. When you start with no script and you're doing the script while you go, that is a recipe for disaster. Unless you have unless you have like a really leading concept or place you want to go with something.
Yeah, which I don't know if they did or not. Okay, well let's get into the movie.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, the plot kind of goes along, shall we say, fairly nicely. It sort of just everything sort of makes sense. They make all sorts of logical jumps to continue it moving forward.
Of course, yes.
That make absolutely no sense.
Yeah, they just have to get to dots.
They know the trajectory. Mm-hmm. They just don't. They don't have the stuff happening in each little part of the trajectory, which actually would lead you to be like, that makes sense that they're going there to do that.
I feel like I honestly don't know if I believe they had a script when they shot. I feel like they had an outline and we're like, okay, today's scene needs to hit this point.
Yeah.
Who knows how we can get there? Let's just do the bare minimum, get to this point and move on.
Well, the actors did not seem like they had an issue with not knowing what was going on in the scene.
That's true.
And it didn't feel like they were improvising it. It felt like they sort of knew what was going on-ish for the day. But I guess that happens on set. They might just give you pages the night before, and they're like, this is what we're doing tomorrow.
Even when you show up, they can be like, here's pages. And you're like, okay, I got to do this in an hour. Let's figure this out. But, I mean, for just a real quick second, I think the main kid, I thought did an admirable job.
And he was not an actor.
Yeah. No, this was like his first role, right?
First and maybe only role. I don't know. I didn't look, but it didn't seem like he burned it up afterwards. And he was a guy. Yeah. He was actually had a spinal issue, and so he was a kid in a wheelchair, which is incredible that they would think to do that.
Yes, unless they were doing it because they thought it would give them attention. It just I don't know. I don't want to put anything on them.
It wouldn't be surprising, but it's. Yeah. Okay. So let's jump into the movie. It's an Orion picture, which classic. I looked up Orion. They sort of co-finance stuff and finance stuff, and sort of had good times and bad times, and they'd have bust years and boom years. And we start off on some sort of moon of what looks to be Saturn. And the aliens are there. There's the mom, a dad, a daughter, and little tiny Mac. And the whole thing we sort of learn is that they have straws that to survive, they stick into the ground, and then the ground of the moon shoots water out.
So I feel like we could spend a lot of time on this just first 4 minutes of the film, and we'll try to keep it brief. But this is the most asinine alien scene I've ever seen in my entire life. I have oh my God. Well, yeah. Should we talk about the costumes first?
Sure,
we can start off with the costumes. What in the world was somebody thinking? First of all, and I don't want to be crude, okay? I don't want to be like, take it blue right away. But are they modeled after like disfigured sex dolls?
This is a common thing that people sort of think, because the characters just sort of have a mouth that sort of does a thing.
It's so weird.
And then they have the big glass eyes that are movable. They got whoever was the man. He had a really weird way of walking, which the other characters didn't do quite as much.
Yeah, it wasn't like it was like that one actor was like, I'm really going to sink into this role. And this is how he is. Like, I stick out my gut and I kind of wobble. And everyone else is like, I'm just going to walk. I don't really want to do all that. That's not fun for me.
So they're just sort of giant eyes, pointy ears that, and the things move. They're basically just sort of your bare minimum costumes. You can throw a human being in there and the human being does all the work, because there maybe were like 2 or 3 digital effects that I can think about. I can only think of 2 digital effects. and the rest were just sort of, mechanical
Yeah.
or suit, just suit. I mean, they had, Mac was some sort of robot, which I thought they did a pretty good
Is that
job
what
of
it was?
hiding,
Okay.
or puppet,
Some
whatever
sort,
you want.
Yeah.
But they did a pretty good job of, when he was just there on his own,
Mhm.
hiding however they were getting him, who was
The
ever
movement.
making him. Yeah.
My thing is the costumes on the adults didn't fit right. I don't know if you noticed that, but there was a lot of bunching on the back of the neck, so it was like they were, like you could tell that they were just inside some sort of rubber suit because it kept. I don't know. I I was very disappointed, and that's how we open the movie, is seeing these 4 idiots walk down like a desert of the moon. But let's talk about the geography of this moon. So there's no. Well, where do they live? There's no buildings. I didn't see any. Like are they just 4 wanderers?
Yeah, they just wander and do the straw and get the water.
As,
And that's it,
as
man.
if that's a lifestyle. Like
Yeah.
what? What are you?
That's
What
it,
kind
man.
of an alien life form is this? One, who created those straws? Because I don't believe that they did. They don't seem all that smart to me.
They're kind of crooked. Yeah, maybe there's like a tree, like way out there, and then the tree they kind of, use like another little stick and hollow out the,
I don't know. I
I
really
could
don't.
see it happening because like with I think you're overthinking it, Tony.
I am not overthinking, because these people just walk for their entire lives. As far as I can
So-
tell, that's all they do.
So then a spaceship comes cruising in, like not like a spaceship, normal spaceship lands where it comes straight down because that's how spaceships land. But this thing is just like, whee, it just can go wherever it wants, and it just decides to shoot it down right there,
There's
and it lands, boom, and they're like, "What is this?" Okay, and you got to remember the aliens, they communicate as if they're talking like R2D2. Beep, bop, boop,
Yes,
boop.
that's so. This is after Star Wars? Star Wars is 70s, right? Okay, so I wrote that. I wrote as R2D2 in this movie just because, like, that's they whistle, and that's how they talk to each other. Yeah. Damn, that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
But that's all part of the Frankensteining. They're like,
Ugh,
how should we make them talk? R2D2, done,
so dumb.
right? And everyone,
hate that.
like R2D2 makes those noises, and C3PO understands him. So they're like, oh, they'll all just make these noises, and they'll understand them, and that'll be assumed to be a language. And then we don't have to dig into language and all that stupid stuff. So in comes the spaceship. Spaceship lands and starts like collecting samples, and then they like throw a rock at it, and then they like sneak up on it, and they start investigating it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so. How did you enjoy that part? Like they have some little comical stuff that happens.
Did they? I must have missed the comical parts of it.
Well, they're playing sort of wondrous comical music. Ooh, 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 like
Yeah, for sure. For
like
like 2
Mac-
minutes.
Mac puts a rock in the scooper and it picks up that rock, which is kind of a jokey thing to do.
Isn't? I didn't find it jokey. I was like, why am I watching this terrible creation of some sort of spacecraft robot that looks like it was made out of tinfoil and air conditioning ducts?
And the lights look like they came off of a Jeep. These Jeep lights. You're like, oh, Jeep lights, cool.
But they kept showing it, and I guess it was a different time, so I can't really fault them too much, I guess. But it felt like they were really trying to show off. Like they're like, oh, look at the cool stuff we made, and it does this, and it's just not good. It's
Well, that's the thing. If you make a prop to do a couple of things like drill into the ground, do the scoop, you got to really, you got to showcase that scoop, because that, you probably spent $3,000 or $4,000 to get that, scoop effect. So you got to do that a couple times to get a good laugh.
well, I don't know if it worked. I'll just tell them that. I don't think that I did not laugh. Maybe you did. Did you? Oh, hold on. I laughed, but not with them. I wasn't laughing because they were being comical. I was like, what is happening? You guys are bad at making movies.
Yeah. That's the whole, that's the whole sort of thing, is you have to go into this as one of the worst movies ever.
Sure.
And it's like, you're not going to get Rocky Horror Picture Show out of Benjamin Button. You're not. You're not. This movie is it's full Rocky Horror Picture Show. I mean, although I love Rocky Horror Picture Show,
great.
it's just stuff happening. It's stuff happens to have stuff happen, and that's why you're there for the adventure.
So speaking of stuff happening, let's just jump right to the next thing that happens, which is them getting sucked into the spacecraft.
Yes.
I don't understand the physiology of these aliens.
Yeah.
Do they have no bones?
Well, I mean, I think that's the interesting thing about it is you watch it and the things like it's just about this big and it sucks up 4 full-sized aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the actual special effects. They get sucked up in this, and as an audience member, I was like, well, this is really stupid. But the great thing about this movie is it's not really stupid. It's actually setting a very important plot point precedent that these aliens are springy, and we get to see this played out, and it's sort of brilliant because as an audience member, I'm like, oh, dumb, stupid filmmakers. They just need to get these things in that thing to get them there. But they didn't just do that. They then use this throughout the entire movie.
Yeah,
and that's some clever filmmaking. In a perfect world, they should have the man should have spring over and pulled the wife to him at one point, and then you'd have been like, oh, they're springy, and so when they go in there, so they don't lose us at that point, because they lose us at that point.
Oh, immediately.
But then they got me back, because then you're like, oh, this is what these things are.
But what are I understand that they're mysterious alien creatures, Mac. Hello. But I never understood the rules of their body. I didn't understand the rules of this universe. It made no sense to me because at one point he gets smashed behind the door, if you remember that.
And it hurts him.
It hurts him. Why would it hurt him if he doesn't have bones? I don't understand.
Because they probably didn't want to spend a special effect on that. And they got the comical thing of him being in pain, which is always funny to watch.
Sure.
When the semi runs over E.T.'s foot, you're like, ha ha, stupid little ass.
Is that how you watch E.T., Dan?
I hate E.T.
Really? Interesting.
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay.
Not as much as my dad hates E.T. Oh my God, my dad hates E.T.
Your dad's anti-E.T.?
So the aliens get sucked into the probe, and then the probe just immediately takes off.
As if it knew it had precious cargo? That's the only thing that I could think. It was like, oh shit, I got aliens. We gotta go.
Yes. Because it had been there a total of about 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. Traveled all the way across the universe, 3 minutes on the planet, and then it's like, out of here.
That's my other question, Dan. How long does it take to get to Saturn? Years,
oh, I didn't
right?
look it up, but yeah.
So, are you telling me those aliens were in there for years?
No.
But that's how long it takes to get there, Dan.
Yeah.
So how's that possible? Because it's immediate, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Because all those scientists were clearly waiting for it to come back, and they were like, "Yeah, great. That was 20 minutes. Here's our Saturn probe." I was so mad when they came home. And the aliens were just the same age. I was like, oh, is he going to grow up and be an adult? Nope, he's a kid. Even though he was a kid, 10 years ago when he left Saturn. Space.
I mean, this could have been set in the future, although it wasn't. And, you're cluttering things up with science,
It's a science fiction.
Fiction. Sometimes you got to lean into the fiction.
But you have to set rules. Science fiction needs its own rules. You can create your rules. I'm fine with that.
This movie is science fantasy.
Okay.
So
I'll
magic.
ease up. I'll ease up on some of those points. I just got very frustrated all night.
So the thing lands. We don't see it land. Then it's inside a bunker, and they're taking it apart. And we've got a doctor we've got agents, we've got general, so we've got like every, all the things. Plus we have like guys up in the top that are like Air Force, I think. I think they're wearing Air Force outfits. So we got the Army, we got the Air Force, we got everything. We're taking it apart, and lo and behold, they open the magic chamber, and what pops out?
Little tiny alien guy.
Little tiny alien guy, and the rest of his family.
So, here's where the movie really lost me, Dan. Nobody seemed all that surprised.
Nope.
Guys, you just discovered an alien species, and everyone's pretty much chill about it. They're like, oh, close the thing. Close it back up. Oh, who are these guys? Who are these 4 creatures I've never seen before in my life that came out of our Saturn probe? Why is nobody... They should be either terrified or super excited. Because this is big news. Earth, we are not alone, people. Aliens! Nobody cared. I was so mad.
Now, the aliens also, when the dad alien touches stuff, at times, it explodes.
Another thing that they're setting up. For no pay... Oh, we'll get to the ending, but continue.
So the alien explodes the window, and did they climb through the window, or they went another way, and
yeah, like
Mac runs off like a maniac for some reason, but the other 3 stay together, and they, somehow the main couple, just the main trio, just wanders off and escapes without anyone following, because they're just moving at normal walking speed somehow.
Not even normal walking speed. They're slow. Those 3 are super slow. And everyone's just like, let him go. The little one, that's the one we want. Why do they spend the whole movie looking for the smallest alien when they have 3 giant aliens just wandering the desert? Everyone just lets them walk out of a huge base filled with tons of army personnel. Like, what? What are you talking about?
So little Mac runs. I think he blows up a fence with his hands. Did he blow up a fence with his hands?
Well, he hung on the fence.
Well, I think he blew up the fence first, and then the helicopter comes, and it's blowing him, and he stretches out like a rubber band, and then lets go, and he shoots like a rubber band.
Great.
All the way to the freeway, where he lands on the front of one car, and is all flattened and blah, 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 blah. And then they crash, and then we have this giant crash scene.
It's a huge pileup. Everyone's dead. One truck flew into the air and landed on a smaller car. Those people are dead. I'm sorry. Everyone just got out of there. Are you guys okay? Everybody okay? We're okay. There's a point there. Some trucker dude is walking by our main character's car, and they're like, "Hey, what happened?" He's like, "Oh, nothing serious, just a small accident." I was like, "What? This was a huge pileup. There's like 8 dead people just laying in the road right now, and nobody cares."
Someone did say, "Get a fire extinguisher."
Oh my God, Dan, the fire extinguisher! I forgot. First of all, she covers the whole car. Just douses it, and then the guy comes out with his arm on fire. She douses him. You're not supposed to spray people with a fire extinguisher. You drop and roll. That is fire safety 101, people. This is teaching a bad precedent to our children in schools who are trying to learn to drop and roll right now. Dangerous rhetoric coming from Mac and me.
So Mac slips. So we meet this family that's in a van. There's two young boys, the youngest boys in a wheelchair. Mom, Christine Ebersol. Max slips into the car somehow, just like through an open window.
Yeah.
And then they pull up to somehow they've already set up a checkpoint.
Very fast. They are
literally, quick. Literally within a minute or two.
But they can't find 3 giant adult aliens anywhere.
No, they want that baby, Mac. So they shine the flashlights in there. And somehow Mac knows to hide.
Yep. Very smart baby for some of the movie.
And so at some point, I don't know if it was before Mac reaches up and steals a soda with his rubber hands. So he figures out he's thirsty.
The beginning of the great product placement in the movie.
Oh yeah, this is our first encounter with Coca-Cola.
But not our last.
Not our last. So the family get to suburbia. There's
Wait,
the little
hold
girl.
on. We
Hold
gotta
on,
back
there's-
up to the coke stealing because there's an.
Oh.
So my biggest problem, I think, with the movie is logic, and not. I won't harp on the space logic anymore, Dan, because I'm not a spaceman. I don't know things. Just human logic. So he steals the coke, and the little kid is like, "Hey, my brother stole my coke," and the brother's like, "I didn't steal it," and then there's a burp, and the kid and the mom both go, "Oh, see, you did steal the coke because you burped." But they were looking at the kid when he burped. Are you telling me that that kid can burp without anyone like seeing any sort of movement? Like you burp, you're like, eh. Like this
Maybe-
kid belched out loud, secret, like a puppeteer with no movement whatsoever, and they're like, "See, you did steal it." These people are dumb.
But don't they then blame the burp on the mom and do a little mom joke?
Well, yeah, they turn because the kid's like, "Well, I didn't do it." So then the kid,
We see it's the triangle.
The
So the
triangle of-
one kid thinks the other kid burped, the one kid thinks the mom burped, the mom thinks the kids burped. So nobody really everyone's it's like who cut the cheese. You're never going to know who cuts the cheese because even the person who cut the cheese is going to say you're the one that cut the cheese. And if you have 3 people, you can never solve the cut the cheese problem, can you? This is like, this is real math, Tony, and you're not getting it. You missed it.
the
See, you're
paradigm.
trying to place all your logic. Oh, everybody's looking at everybody's mouth. But if I'm looking at my brother, my brother's looking at my mom, and my mom's looking at me, how are you going to know who really burped? You're going to know one person didn't burp. You're not going to know the other person didn't burp, and then you're going to know that. So you can't. It's not the old logic of the if I go through this door, will I get the tiger? If this door is the lady, that one you just have 2 people. But once you add 3. You're never going to solve this logic problem.
Wait, what did you just say to me? The logic of a tiger behind a door or a lady? What is that?
Okay, there's 2 doors. Behind one door, there's a tiger, and behind one door, there's a lady.
Ooh, yeah, I want the lady door. Is that the...
There's a guard in front of each door.
Okay.
One guard only tells the truth. One guard only lies.
But how do you know?
You can ask one question. What question do you ask?
I don't know. What do I...
You ask one of the... see, if you ask the guard that lies, is the tiger behind there, he's going to be like, no.
Right.
So you're never going to know if you ask them. So what you do is you ask the one guard, you say to the one guard, if I ask him which door the tiger was behind, what would he say? And so since it works out. It's a logic problem.
Wow. No, this is great. I like it.
I'm not going to diagram it for you, but I have diagrammed for you
the cheese.
Mac
cut the cheese.
The Mac cut the cheese, or who blasted the burp.
The
burp
the cheese paradigm. Okay,
so
all right, moving on. I'm sorry.
They get to suburbia. The little next door neighbor girl is outside in a teepee with a chameleon on her head.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We never see this chameleon again, but she has a living chameleon on her head.
Amazing.
Not foreshadowing. They just threw that in there because somebody had a chameleon that day.
Yeah.
They get to the house. They go through the house. They start unpacking. We learn they're from Chicago. We learn that what the dad is dead or something.
Yes.
We don't ever really find out what happened to the dad. Dad might be gone, but I think he's dead. So they start unpacking, and somehow Mac just keeps on cruising around the house like free as a bird with nobody ever really seeing him. And I'm sure that your favorite scene is the scene where the brother is in his room and he's trying on his sunglasses. He puts on his sunglasses. There he sees Mac. Then he's like, what? And so he takes them off and he's gone from the doorway. And he's like, I puts them on again and Mac is back. He takes them off again and he's gone. And then the mom shows up and Mac is gone.
Yeah, 2 problems with that scene, Dan. One, this idiot kid assumes it's the glasses that are doing it? What? In what universe do you have glasses that make you see little creatures? Like, what? How is that the leap that you make? He's like, oh, it must be the glasses. No, they're not the glasses, you idiot. That's the dumbest thing. If you had magic glasses, that's a new movie. I'm all for it. Like a glass that sees through the 4th wall or something. Great. Love that movie.
He probably had just seen They Live.
Oh my God, that is what They Live is about.
So there you go. Once
right,
again,
Dan.
Tony's logic
Wow.
shut down.
Man, this is
He's
a
like,
rough day
oh,
for
these
me.
must be the, I mean, it doesn't make any sense since he did own these glasses before. It's not like he just bought these glasses. It's not like he picked them up at the 7. Maybe he picked them up at the 7-Eleven when they're
On the
driving.
way,
out.
yeah, they're brand new glasses. Who knows? Okay. And then the mom appears in less than a second. Where the hell is this tiny little alien guy? How fast is Mac? I mean,
See,
this guy's fast.
My assumption is he moves through the vents.
Oh, because he's got no bones.
Yeah. So he goes right through the vents, in and out. They just left that out because they didn't have the money for that.
That's
All his vent
much.
movement.
They spent
So
it all
then-
on the vacuum.
So Mac is in the kid whose name is Eric. I wrote that down, I think. Eric.
Oh, nice.
He goes into Eric's room and then magically makes toys come to life. He magically makes a TV come to life. We do a bunch of that stupid things. And then little Debbie's up on the porch and she's seen him because she saw him get out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
So Debbie's like, I seen it, but smartly Debbie knows you can't tell parents. They're never going to believe. Debbie never falls into the trap of being a stupid kid trying to explain to an adult
That is
that there's
correct.
she goes there immediately. She's pretty smart.
She's very smart. Do you think it's because she's a hippie? So she's like in tune with the universe? Because like that's kind of the feeling I got. Is she's kind of like, she's like in it. She gets it.
Well, she has a teepee, so maybe she studies the American Indians. She's like, yeah, maybe she's got a little peyote back there, which means, she's open to whatever happens.
Her mind is open.
So she's up there eating an Otter Pop.
What is that? Is that the push? Why are you looking at me like that? Just I don't know what an Otter Pop is? I'm sorry.
You don't know what an Otter Pop is? Otter Pops are frozen confections that they sell at the grocery store. They used to come in boxes of 24. Now they come in bigger boxes. And it's just your classic
still make 'em?
frozen.
I'll get one. I'm sorry. Keep going.
And they come in like 6, 7 flavors. Each one has a different character on them. She was eating, I believe, a Pancho Punch. And Otter Pops were actually the guy that formulated Funny Face drink mix, which you don't know about either.
I don't.
He actually went and formulated Otter Pops. And Otter Pops are, I believe, made here in Southern California.
Wow. If you guys didn't know out there, Dan has a kids food live stream every Sunday, right? Every Sunday.
Talk about things like Otter Pops.
There you go.
So she's eating an Otter Pop. Very cool. Nice product placement. So we get to nighttime, and he's out there crying. Mac is out there crying.
Mac. Yeah. So, okay. Again, this is a logic thing for me. Can they hear each other?
Okay, we have a couple of different. We have 2 scenes where they communicate by making like these sort of ultrasonic noises, and then they hold their hands up like this, and it's a form of communication. At one point, the kid does it, and that's how Mac begins to trust him.
Mm-hmm.
They can hear each other to some extent.
Okay.
But we're going to get into some more territory where things, of course, make absolutely no sense. But we're okay with that.
Let me be on record. I'm not okay with it, Dan, but I'll try to be okay with it.
So, do you remember what happens the next morning, Tony?
Is that when the outside is inside? Or am I jumping ahead?
Yes. Outside was inside at this point. Yes. I don't know if I wrote down everything. Because at one point he starts doing drilling holes in the wall.
Oh, God, yes.
And cutting open the door. I don't remember when. I don't know if I wrote that. I didn't write down when that happened. The morning, maybe all that stuff happens, and then Eric goes to chase him and goes out the backyard. Yes, because what has happened is he's remade the alien landscape in their living room.
In the living room, yeah.
And
then the mom blames her son.
Kid, yes, because somehow the kid would have brought in like 2 tons of sand.
Right, like you need like 30 kids in order to remake this in one night. Like this is an intense home makeover, and this mom is an idiot. She is in denial through most of this movie.
And I mean, yes, it was a full elf situation where like he just transforms the entire living room.
Terraforming.
Terraforming. And so Eric goes to chase him, and they live on a giant hill, which plays out multiple times. And Eric gets to the hill, and then he just loses control of the chair.
As you might, going down straight downhill.
He goes down the hill, shoots off a cliff, falls 50 or 60 feet into a lake, uninjured.
Totally fine. He's totally fine. He's not even shook up. Like he's pretty.
And he's
calm.
held onto his chair during all of this. And so everyone shows up, and then we see like the little Mac body floating in the water, like it just like they threw one of the Mac dolls in the water for this one scene, and then Mac pushes him out of the water, like through some sort of superhuman Mac strength.
So
and nobody sees this except, I mean, Debbie, I'm sure saw it because Debbie sees Debbie somehow is always there to see.
Yeah, Debbie.
Everyone else never there to see.
So I have. Oh, sorry. You finish.
Gets him out. They take him. They call the doctor. They take him back up to his room, and he's like, "Didn't you see the little man, the little guy?" And everyone's like,
"No little guy." Okay,
oh.
So let's really quickly go to the special effects of this scene, where they just put a dummy in a wheelchair, strapped it to the wheelchair, I assume, and just threw it over the head. So this is the scene that Paul Rudd uses. I finally looked it up. I didn't want to look it up before the movie. I wanted to look it up after. And I get it. I laughed so hard when that happened. It was one of the true delights of my entire life because it's such an incredible scene. It's amazing. And then the stupid doll in the water where he's like, he's pushing the wheelchair, but he's not moving. So I don't know how he's moving through the water, but it's not based in reality at all.
No, it is not.
And how did he learn how to swim? Because he drinks
That's
water
true.
through the surface of a world that somehow has water, 2 inches below a very hard surface that you can walk on. Doesn't make any sense, but that's fine. We're not focusing on the science of it all. But how did he learn to swim? When would he have done that?
Maybe like when he visited his grandparents or something. I don't know. Maybe they have a pool. They probably have a pool. They live on the wet side of the moon, and so they visit them during the summer.
Of course.
During the winter they just are doing the straw. Yeah, I mean, see, you can solve all this if they worked on a novelization, we'd be able to get all this great backstory in there. They just don't get to it.
Dan, maybe you should write a novelization of this movie. I think it'll sell. I think it's got like cult status, so I think that you could get this sold. So
they're in there with the doctor, and Debbie says, don't tell them because they're gonna say you have schizophrenia, which is you see stuff like
people
ghosts
that aren't there, yeah.
And this is when the movie gets good. Why is this when the movie gets good?
I guess I don't know. I have something I want to say about the scene, but it can't be the same thing you're going to say.
Because right after this, Courtney shows up.
Oh, then actually, you're right. I forgot that that's when we're introduced to her. But before we do that, can we talk about this doctor for a second?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so this doctor gives a kid a pill without a prescription, without diagnosing him, without telling his mom that he's giving him a pill.
This
like
is 80s.
Is that a thing? I was barely alive in the 80s, right? I'm an 85 baby, so I had like the first 5 years. Is that a thing? Could they just give out medicine willy-nilly?
I mean, what did he give him? I don't even remember.
He didn't tell anybody. He's like, take this pill, kid. Very scary stuff in my mind. I don't know.
Well, back then the world was purer. It was less judgy.
I miss
So,
those days then.
you trusted doctors back then.
Also, real quickly, side note, they leave their back door, their sliding door, just open all the time.
Well, you got to remember, man, back then with serial killers, man, they would just walk into every place, like you hear all these stories of Night Stalker, all this, man, Golden State rapist, he's just up, I'm coming in.
And because no one locks their doors.
No one locked their doors.
That's what a weird
Valley.
time. Okay, so let's introduce this new character.
Courtney.
Whoa. One thing I want to say real quickly is that older brother, who's one of the biggest nerds I've ever seen in my life, she is so out of his league. It's the least in this movie full of logic holes. This is the thing that I believed the least. Why is she interested in him at all? That's not the real world.
It's the thing I believe the most. And she is wearing her McDonald's uniform.
Oh my God.
Which Debbie informs them that she works at the local McDonald's.
Of course.
And Debbie says, "Why don't you stop by for a Big Mac?"
Max.
Which is the greatest coding I've ever heard. Which you're just like, God bless you, Debbie. You're hooking up the older brother.
It's so. That's one of like the lines that I laughed at the most. Why don't you stop by for a Big Mac sometime? I was like, oh shit! Whoa! She
very
gets
dirty.
It. It's unbelievable. She might be my favorite character.
Debbie.
That's the little girl, right? She's wise beyond her years, and that's what I love that in a kid in a story, like for no reason at all, because we don't really get to know their parents at all. Her sister doesn't seem all that overly bright. She's just like this shining beacon. No, she's great, but she's not like a genius. Jeez. She doesn't, You don't know. That's true. I don't.
You don't know.
That's true. We don't. Nobody knows. We don't know her all that well.
So then we have like literally my favorite scene of the movie, which is Mac sitting on the hillside. It's dusk. It's getting dark. He's watching the freeway. He's just sitting there enjoying the freeway. And I mean, this is, he comes from Rock Planet. So like he doesn't get to see stuff. So just like the freeway. He just, the freeway.
The wonder that is
the wonder
LA traffic.
Of the freeway. Yeah, it's pretty beautiful.
I actually do like that scene because it's like an insight into his character that you don't get from almost anyone else in the movie. Like it's like a real moment where they're like, no, this is a living thing. It's not just a toy which is pretty much how it's treated the rest of the movie. But I like it because I wish the movie was more like that. I wish it was more of an emotional connection to Mac. Because why are you laughing? What?
Because that would be succeeding in the thing that this movie wants to succeed at most, which is being E.T., where you're like, oh my God, these poor children, they've lost their parents, and the kid only has Mac to turn to, and you're just like, no, not really. Mac is just sort of this minor plot contrivance. They really never care about Mac that much. He's just sort of a thing. It's just sort of a plot thing that they're just like, what did you do last summer? Oh my God, this crazy alien. As opposed to E.T., which is like bogged down in all this poor Elliot, blah, blah, E.T.'s. Give me a break. Oh my God,
you do hate E.T.
Oh, I hate E.T. It's terrible. So, let's see. What happens next? Is this the point? How does he...
When does he chase after the boy? When's that chase scene where he goes jogging with his mom?
That's the hill chase.
Okay.
So we have a whole... they have this whole thing with the telegraph and so Mac cleans up the whole house and they sort of know he's kind of going on. I guess we don't do the trapping him. No, I guess we trap him now, don't we? Yeah, this is the point at which so this whole scene is they're setting the trap for him, and they've left all these straws out. It seemed like the trap that happened during the day, and then it turns into night.
Well, because they're waiting. They set the trap, and then they wait by the
Oh,
trap.
okay. So they set the trap. They leave out straws and cokes, and he comes, and then Debbie's got the vacuum cleaner
Yeah.
on her back, which we don't really ever see, and then she's wearing the helmet. Somehow they've known that he's rubbery.
See, that's what we need to talk about this, Dan, because I'm sorry, I keep harping on the logic, but in what world are you thinking, as a kid, are you thinking to yourself, man, I need to trap a thing that's about 2.5 feet of solid mass. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to suck it up into a hole this big. Because that makes sense. Why would that kid think that would work? And then it does work, so we're just reaffirming this stupid kid's crazy idea.
Well, you see, what has happened, more of the backstory that we don't see in the movie, but we know is in the novelization. Eric has put it together that the only way that the soda could have gotten stolen in the van
is a stretchy arm.
Stretchy arm. He's like, oh, I get it now. He couldn't, his tiny arms, because he knows how long his arms are. So he's like, oh, the arms stretch. So he's put it all together. He's like, boop, 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 boop. It's a smart kid.
Smartest kid I've ever seen.
His brain compensates for the other stuff. He's been in a wheelchair, so he's got to be smarter than us. He's got to be, he's got to be faster, more intelligent, more adept. He's stronger
faster.
Because he survives that fall. So we know he's sort of the Uberman in the
So both him and Mac have superpowers.
Yeah, of course.
I guess I didn't realize that.
So they suck Mac into the old-timey vacuum cleaner. Then the vacuum cleaner goes crazy and drags Debbie up the wall, drags her down the hallway, drags her around the thing, and then Debbie finally gets off and she said something which I didn't write down, which was like so great. She's like, "Get me off of this crazy thing." Mm-hmm. And it's like completely uninjured. And then they reverse the polarity on the vacuum cleaner, not a thing you can do.
Hold on.
And
Dan, you're getting ahead of yourself. And listen, I don't even think I have to say it. I just want to hear your explanation of how the vacuum cleaner gets onto the ceiling.
Well,
well,
let me think about that. And Debbie spins around, too.
She spins around. She's dragged on the ground.
Well, this is what happens, Tony.
Okay, I'm listening.
The vacuum cleaner is still on, right?
Yes.
So what Mac has done is he's contorted his body inside the vacuum so as to make it thrust back out. And think about it this way. When you have like a water balloon, right? And it's filled with water.
Yeah.
If you just let the aperture at the top go, it just goes, right?
Sure.
But if you make it very thin, it can shoot out a very strong, straight beam of water, like a stream of water. Mm-hmm. So he's in there. Okay, I'm going to control this. And so he can literally, the air is shooting out the back, right? And that's propelling it forward. And then he moves it a little to the side, and that gives it spin, and then he moves it down, and it launches up, right? Think about that. Think about there's those rockets, right? You buy those rockets at the toy store, and you put them on the thing, you fill them a little bit with water, and then you pressurize them, and then you shoot them, and they go, they shoot right up.
All of that is true.
That's the science of Mac.
Dan, I want to start a new podcast where it's just you defending the logic of terrible movies. Because that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay.
So Mac gets out and takes off, and the mom comes home, and she's been out of shape, and they're like, the alien, but not the, you're just like, okay, I don't think what's So then we have like the really sad scene. We finally cut back to the family, and they're in the middle of the desert, and they've got clothes on, which I don't think they had clothes before.
No.
And they're dying. They're having a rough go of it in the desert.
They really are. It's brutal.
Did that hurt? Did you feel that one?
Dan, I kind of didn't. I know. Listen.
Jeez. Steel.
This movie upset me, and so I was a little vindictive about it. But here's the thing. These aliens just walked into the. I get it because that's where they're from. Like they were like,
Yes,
this is what
exactly.
we know. So why isn't this working? Right. But I felt like it was just manipulative.
Yeah. E.T.'s
I-
completely manipulative. Go watch E.T. and
I
don't
will
tell me
admit-
it's not completely manipulative.
I'll admit I haven't seen E.T.
Stupid
in a
little
long, long
Elliot. Oh, divorced family. Poor me. Woe is me.
time. Oh my god.
Ass.
And I'm the one that's insensitive for not caring about these 3 stupid aliens. Maybe you're right. I don't know. I haven't seen E.T. in a long time. I'm sure it is very manipulative. It's Spielberg.
So then we have the big jog on the hill.
Okay, thank God I've been waiting for this scene, Dan.
Why don't you talk about this scene? Because I didn't write a lot of notes.
Well, okay.
Actually, I wrote a couple notes.
We want to hear them. Basically, so first of all, the kid and the mom are like going to go jogging together, and I love that. I think that's awesome. I think that's a great scene. I wish we had seen them do more things together because it felt out of place because the whole movie's been her just like not really believing him and same old. But I love this moment where they're like, let's go jogging on the hill together. Great. My problem is that Mac sees this and the song starts. That's my problem. My biggest problem with the scene is the song.
Well, that's the thing. You put music in movies.
Totally great. The song, also great. I love the song. Do you know what the song's about?
It was like some terrible 80s song.
It's a terrible 80s song about being best friends. It's like, I'll never leave you, you're my best friend. But they're not
that's
friends.
the whole thing.
They're not friends yet, Dan. They didn't earn him and the alien.
Mm-hmm.
They've barely spoken to each other. And they didn't earn this song to me. It felt so out of place because Mac is just all of a sudden is like longing to be on, I don't know, is he longing to be on the jog with them? Is he jealous that the boy's spending time with his mother? Like, I didn't understand the emotion behind Mac. So he starts chasing them in like a little mini go-kart thing, which was pretty awesome. And then like 80 dogs just start chasing him. Was that a thing in the 80s too, that people just let their dogs run around? Very dangerous. These dogs are all going to get hit by cars.
It would be bad.
The
streets ran red back in the 80s.
Oh, jeez.
You shouldn't make jokes about like that, but that one I had to do.
No, it was well timed. It's dark. So the song was super out of place to me, and it's like this upbeat friend song, but he's supposed to be sad, I think, and the whole thing just didn't make any sense, and nothing happened. Why is the scene even in the movie? All they do, he's just driving down with dogs chasing him, and then he gets thrown into a tree. What the hell? What am I watching right now? Why is this? How is this supposed to be an emotional moment for me? It doesn't make any sense.
It does not.
Okay, what are your notes? You talk to me. What happened?
I just wrote ate shit in a tree.
Which is accurate. It's accurate.
So Matt cleaned up the house and he left like these clues, which were a Wix furniture ad and then 2 pictures of horses.
Yep.
So just sort of pack that away.
So before we pack it away, okay, no, we can pack it away. We can talk about it later.
Pack that away.
We'll talk about it.
It's party day. We foreshadowed the party earlier. They pick up the government. Oh, the government has somehow found out what's going on because there was like a power outage at one point. So the government has tracked it down based on scant information.
At best.
At best scant.
Well, but so
I'm sure if we thought about it, we could figure it out. Probably because
if you thought about it.
They were probably watching because they knew that the aliens had this power to explode things, like with their hands, with electricity. So they knew that there was some electricity overload thing going on. So they, the government knew that they should be studying the power grid to see where these kind of disruptions might be occurring, and that led them right to Mac.
Dan, I'm going to be honest. That's the first one that you've said that I completely buy. I'm 100% sold on that theory. I agree. I think that makes sense. I'm over it.
So the government's there, and so he's got to sneak Mac out. So somehow he carves out a teddy bear and puts him in, which, I mean, you knew he was going in that teddy bear outfit at some point, like when they showed the teddy bear at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because they which was very, another good, they did a lot of good foreshadowing of the crazy stuff that was going to happen.
Sure.
So he carves him out and he puts Mac in. It's kind of interesting. You're kind of like, well, how did he put him in there? There's a hole in the butt of the bear, which you can see in the dancing scene. So he squeezed him right in there.
Oh.
You didn't think about that, did you?
I didn't. Dan, you preemptively shut me down.
Neither did I, because I just thought of that. It bugged the hell out of me in this movie.
Yeah.
So he's in the bear costume. They go with the mom. They go to the party. Of course, we're all expecting the party to be at somebody's house. It is not.
Nope.
Tell us about the party, Tony.
It's of course at a freaking McDonald's, because McDonald's is the only restaurant that exists in this universe. It's the only place you can go outside of your home to get food. It's like Taco Bell in that Sylvester Stallone movie. No.
Oh, Demolition Man.
Demolition Man.
One of the greatest movies of all time.
Phenomenal, right? Anyhow, sorry.
Yeah.
Got sidetracked.
Right up there with Mac and me.
I hate you. So, okay. Here's what I'm going to say just right out the bat about this McDonald's. It is a beautifully diverse McDonald's. Like it's a perfect utopia of what we remember from the 80s. Maybe not everybody, but like in my mind, like this was the 80s. It's culturally diverse. We're all hanging out as kids. There's no parents around because there weren't parents in the 80s. Okay. And we're just having like a dance circle outside of McDonald's. And I was like, yes, this is the 80s. I remember this. I never did any of that, but I feel like I did. And so I'm immediately in. Like, I'm very excited. I'm like, okay, this is the first scene of this movie that I'm going to fully be invested in. And then they took that feeling from me and they threw it on the ground and they set it on fire. Because what unfolds is the most insane series of events to ever happen in a McDonald's, let alone the world.
So they go inside, and Courtney's working there. Hallelujah. There's Mac.
Great. They
convince all the other kids that Mac's like a robot. We set up this whole sort of robot thing.
Which people just magically buy because everyone in this movie's an idiot.
There was one dance number outside, and then we have the big dance number on the inside. We've cleared the tables. Everyone's dancing. The 3 football players are dancing. Everybody's dancing. Mac spins. Does he spin? He spins through the crowd and ends up on the counter of the McDonald's with all the McDonald's employees behind him. I don't think Courtney was behind him.
No.
And then he starts dancing, and his dancing is literally the worst dancing human. This is my big disappointment of the movie, was how terrible his dancing was compared to all the other kids are dancing in unison, in time. There's this one little girl who's just like, she's got to be like 7 years old. She's killing it.
And you're okay with that?
I mean, I like that she's killing it. I didn't want her to stop.
Not her.
What bugs me is Mac's dancing is terrible. And it's like, if you're going to hire someone to be in the Mac suit for that day of shooting,
make it
hire
cool.
the best dancing kid ever. Because we have just put that little girl in there and she could just be slamming it.
Dan, you just added a brand new disappointment to me for that scene because I hadn't even thought of that. I was still hung up on the fact that we have a dance scene in a movie that prior to that has had no musical numbers whatsoever. Why is this a choreographed dance in a McDonald's? Where did all of these people come from? Why do they know the same dance? Who are these 40-year-old football players? They're so old.
And my favorite part of this was the 3 ballerinas that are sitting at one of the tables on the front to the right who are so dissatisfied with what's going on. And I can only imagine in my mind that they shot a scene with the ballerinas and then and they were being beautiful, and then the hard rapping, popping, dancing like cut them down, and they sat down and would be no part of this.
So we missed some very important backstory, is what you're telling me, because that's
Yeah. And so the dancing continues, and we end up out in the parking lot, and the government capture team has showed up, and they're trying to capture him, and the dance continues, and we pull out so we can see the McDonald's, and then in the back we can see this tractor trailer that has Golden West Foods on it and the McDonald's symbol, who were a co-producer of the movie.
So let's take a sidebar and talk about the product placement real quickly.
Yes.
I didn't do enough research, but it's an egregious amount of product placement.
Yes.
Is this just a commercial?
Okay, we'll unpack all this right now before we go into the sort of concluding.
Because we got some great stuff ahead.
Couple more, still more. This is gonna be a long episode.
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Okay, the producer of this movie went to McDonald's and had worked with McDonald's, and his idea was, we will make this movie, we will cross promote it in McDonald's, and so McDonald's didn't co-finance it, but Great Western Foods, which owns part of McDonald's or something, they did. So they probably throw out the seed money, and that the idea is, we'll make this Frankenstein movie. It'll be the new ET for the new generation. We'll promote it in the stores.
Were they the first to do that?
I mean,
because now that's all over the place.
Yes, in the 80s, product placement became a huge thing, and we'd have to look at. I did not do the full product placement research about where this stands and all that.
Okay.
So they had Sears, they had Coke, they had McDonald's,
Skittles.
And who knows how much they Skittles was in there. I don't know. I don't think Skittles probably paid.
They did some real close-up shots of that Skittles bag as they're pouring it out. But I'm sure you're right. Maybe they were trying to get it on the back end.
Could be. So that was his whole thing, was we'd do that. Then what sort of happened was Disney heard about this, and Disney freaked out. And so Disney went into McDonald's and was like, oh, we got to sign a contract. So they signed the first 3-year contract. I mean, this is just what the internet sort of says. Who knows how absolutely true, but it makes a lot of sense. They signed like a 3-year Happy Meal, sort of promote the Disney movies, which I kind of think got Mac and Me sort of
booted.
Got a little bit of the booted because so it didn't turn into that. And then the really interesting thing is, I looked at this some more. At the very end of the movies, Mac is wearing a McKids t-shirt.
Yes.
Which was a line of clothing and stores that McDonald's opened up. There were like...
That was real?
There is a whole gigantic line of McKids, which started in about 1978 when this movie was out. They opened stores, and the stores were open for like maybe 3 or 4 years. Then the stores closed, and I think it said they folded the stores into Sears, and then at a certain point they folded the McClothing line, McKids line went into Walmart until the mid 2000s.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What? What a saga. This movie actually went through a lot of shit.
And that's what's so interesting when you really start looking at movies. And I read about Orion Pictures, and these things they're all sort of connected in these weird ways. Wow. John Travolta was one of the people Orion signed as one of their first look kind of guys.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Whoops.
So this movie has a ton of product placement, and it's egregious. And I mean, I think that's the whole thing, is they've toned down product placement, so it's not as egregious as this, but they still, it's there.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. So they start to flee, and then we have like a big chase scene, which goes through Sears, and yes. Yeah. Why don't you talk about the chase scene through Sears and all that? How much you enjoyed that?
I didn't enjoy any of this. I So, first of all, full disclosure, I can't remember the last time I was in a Sears. If, just straight up.
Oh, Sears is having a hard time. The
Oh,
Sears
are
was a
they?
thing. Was Oh yeah, Sears a lot of bankruptcy, a lot of issues. I don't. I mean, I think there still are Sears, but they've been mismanaged
Okay.
and mismanaged, and also like corporate raider kind of guys were in charge, and so they were like selling off things and
Maybe it started with this movie.
could
Maybe
have started.
the movie was the catalyst. Anyhow, in my mind, it's kind of like this is gonna sound bad. It's kind of like a Target where it's got a little bit of everything, right?
Sears was one of the original department stores.
Okay.
So
Okay.
a Sears would have everything,
Okay.
and Target has taken that over by doing better design,
Yes.
by doing the most basic of thinking,
Okay.
and kind of keeping their product relevant so that people want to go there. And it was interesting. I was reading a thing where a person was like, before the COVID thing, they used to go as a family to Target and just wander. And
I used to do Target Tuesdays with my mom. That was
yeah,
like before I moved to LA. That was like our thing. Every Tuesday we would go to Target and we would just kind of check it out.
because Target is always interested, and that
Mhm.
Sears was more about trying to build up their brands, which was like
Okay.
Kenmore, Craftsman Tools. They
Oh.
had these brands that they owned, and then when this corporate raider guy came along, I think he sold off the Craftsman brand. Like sold all these
Okay.
things off.
Got
I
it.
think Kenmore was there. I don't know. Make fun of me in the comments if I got that wrong.
I'll do it.
Um,
I'll do research and then I'll make
and
fun of you.
so there's this terrible chase. They go into the Sears. My favorite part was as they're leaving the Sears, all these agents are chasing them. All these TVs explode, but
Yeah.
they explode after the agents have gone by because they had a timing issue and they probably couldn't shoot it again.
That's right. So, okay, there's two problems with this chase scene, just from like a physical standpoint. The first one is they drive the RC cars, and then they trip over them as if they're like heavy things. Like, bro, no, you would just if you're a full grown man and you're running, and someone drives one of those cars at your feet, you're kicking that thing 15 yards, no
Well,
problem.
you see, the thing is, Tony, he's
Oh,
like
God.
supercharged them with his electricity in his fingers. So
God.
there's probably like a jolt, which sort of when you get hit with a jolt, it
Locks
locks
them.
up
Okay.
your legs.
So
That's
your
probably
legs
what
are
happened.
seizing. Okay, all right. Dude, you got to write a book. Seriously, write the novelization of this movie. It makes more sense with you in it.
Yes.
Okay, so that's number one, and then the TVs is number two. Why did they even stop? Like,
They stopped because TVs blew up behind
it
them,
doesn't make any sense.
and then he magically locks the doors somehow, and they have to
Okay.
throw one of the TVs through.
I, yeah, none. God, it doesn't make any sense to me. Nothing that happened in that department store makes sense. And then, side note, was the mom hitting on that guy on the escalator? Where she's like, "So, how long you been in lingerie?" And I was like, "Whoa, mom, getting frisky." And then nothing comes of it because trouble on the horizon. Kids, man, they always ruining your romantic relationships.
So the kid, Courtney and the brother and Debbie are in the van. He's in the wheelchair. They pull him into the van like in a magical feat of strength that no
Which
human
is
being could ever do.
It was so awesome. Like he just grabbed him and his chair, just like wow, lifted him into a moving van. I was like, dude, this kid's got. That's the first time in this movie, first and only time where I was like, I get what she sees in you, bro. I get
There
it.
it is. See?
You got that hidden physique under there. That guy must be ripped.
So
Just
they
shredded.
they escape somehow. The agents
Yeah.
with cars and watching them escape somehow let them escape because when you need someone to escape, they escape. And then they put together that the Wix thing means they need to go to a Wix store.
Mm-hmm.
And so somehow they hit the road in the middle of the desert to get to the Wix store, which of course makes no sense since I'm sure there was a Wix like right around the.
There has
right
to
around
be. There has to be one just like down the street from them. They're in the suburbs.
And then they see a Wix
Sign.
billboard
Yeah.
and a bunch of wild horses, and they realize that's where they were
This
going.
is what he's been trying to tell us the whole time.
Yep.
No.
That's
Okay.
what he's.
So this is when we have to unpack the communication a little bit. Is it telepathy?
No, I think it's sound, but it has to be telepathy.
Right, because he got images of the Wick sign and the horses. Otherwise, or I'm led to believe that they're explaining the sign in whistles. Like, I don't understand how they're communicating.
I think you got it right there, Tony. You know, they probably took them a number of nights to communicate all that information to Mac.
You said it so seriously, I thought that you were going to say something real. You got me. You got me, Dan.
So they were like, it's a big W that's red and blue. And then they phonetically sounded out the Wicks. Because he was reading the newspaper. Mac was reading the newspaper at one point.
Oh my God, we brushed over that. We totally brushed over it. He's just standing there reading. What? Sorry, that was so weird.
So they find this abandoned mine. The brother goes in there, and the family's like dying in the mine.
I thought they were dead. I was like, oh, this movie's taking a turn. And I got excited.
So I kind of like tuned out for this part. I don't really remember what happened in the mine.
What? Damn,
this part kind of bothered me.
Okay, why did it bother you?
I don't know, because it just kind of, I don't know, it kind of bored me.
I mean, first of all, that's totally fair. But if this is the only part of the movie that bored you, I'm a little confused.
I kind of tuned out for a minute. Maybe I was like having my snack or something. I was just kind of like, meh.
All right, well, let me set the scene for you a little bit. They walk into the mine. It's the older brother, Mac's on his back, and he sees the dead bodies. He's like, oh, shit. They might be dead. So he goes down and he like moves the clothes a little bit and then tries to see if there's a heartbeat, which I have no idea if that exists in these creatures. And then he tries to see if it's breathing. And then to see if it's alive, he pokes this alien in the eye.
He poked it.
What? Why is that your next move?
I totally didn't see that.
You didn't
I was
see
not
that?
paid. I was
Damn.
so tuned out.
So first of all, the alien, I think it's the mom. I'm pretty sure it's the mom. It is the mom because they give the dad coke. Okay, so it's the mom. And she starts, her ears are moving and she starts like, her body's moving. And then he proceeds to poke her in the eye. As if to like jumpstart. She's like, oh, I think she's alive. Boom! What? What are you doing? This kid is an animal. I am not a fan.
If you poked me in the eye, man, that would get me reacting.
It would get me reacting like I would murder you. I'd be like, why did you just poke me in my open eye?
So they load up the aliens in the car and in the van, and then they take off to try to get, because they're still kind of rough, so they need to get them waters because they used up like whatever couple of Cokes they had. They just slip them down because they haven't been able to straw in the desert.
Right. Tough.
And so then they just have to keep these aliens occupied until they can get them to a liquor store or a grocery store.
Grocery store, yeah.
Grocery store. And how do they do that, Tony?
What game were they playing? I forgot. Simon Says? Is that what
Simon
it was?
Says.
Okay.
Simon Says. Because the dad just wants to do stuff. He just wants to get into... It's like, I know you're dying, but I got to get into trouble.
I just got to touch things. He bent the tire iron. First of all, so super strength is very real in this race.
There it is.
They have super strength.
There it is. See, they foreshadowed that when Matt got him out of the lake
by not swimming.
Super strength.
But so they kind of made them like children.
Like
even the adults have like a childlike nature to them.
Kind of like E.T.
Great. So let's remember this for the end of the movie because it's very important to me. So they created these aliens to be childlike. End of story. And now we can move on. Or you could say whatever you want about this, but we need to remember that.
So they go and they have to get gas. And that's where the liquor store. They go into a liquor store. There's also a grocery store. Is that what happened?
Yeah, okay. I think it's like it's kind of like how we have Costco nowadays, where there's gas outside and then grocery store, and there's like different buildings. I think.
Yeah, so they go into a liquor store to try to get quick drinks.
Yep.
But then the aliens decide to get out of the van and go into the grocery store.
Yep.
and then we have this really tense moment where like the alien is trying to steal a soda, and the security guard pulls a gun, and then the alien takes the gun. So now that dad alien's walking around with a gun, which he's somehow remaneuvered into his hand, so it's ready to rock.
Yep.
And then every police officer within 1,000 miles shows up in the course of about 3 minutes.
Seconds. It was the response time is unreal.
They're of course on the thing, and they say the line, "This is the police," because you have to say that.
Cool, because now it's a hostage situation.
And they're all pointing guns, and things are just going crazy.
But at the same time, they're not going crazy because they're all pointing the guns, but no one's really doing anything. And the alien's just kind of walking out like, hey, well, I don't know what's going on. I'm just waving this thing around dangerously. And the kids find, maybe he's the chief of police? I don't know. But the guy that they're talking to seems to believe them, which I liked. He was just like, okay, hold your fire. And then the boy, why can't I remember the boy's name? We've been talking about him. Eric zips off to go help the aliens.
Let me take care of this.
Okay, sorry.
Or says something stupid like that.
Yeah. And then just, bolts.
Rolls.
Yeah. And then we get to my favorite part of the entire movie. So who fired first of all? This is like a Han Solo situation to me.
I don't know.
Maybe the alien shot?
Did the alien? Maybe the alien accidentally shot one off.
Like he might have accidentally fired. But then just, they just rain gunfire on these aliens. And they blow up the gas station?
They blow up the pumps and like the big building behind. I mean, it's not just a small blow up. It's huge.
How many people were in that store? Conservatively, maybe 10 people are in that store right now. They're all dead.
I didn't think about that.
I mean, the clerk is definitely in there. Like, there's at least some casualties.
Well, actually, probably everybody came outside because of the aliens to see what was going on with the police. So everyone filtered. Yeah, I think that's okay. In the novelization. I think we're going to put that in there. So nobody was really injured.
Because they didn't show me that in the movie. They didn't show anyone filing out of this place. They just showed it blowing up.
That was B-roll. They had to keep it under 90 minutes. So that's just like the ballet dancer scene had to get cut.
So it all blows up, and our hero is in the explosion?
He's right outside of it.
Is because it shows...
He's been shot.
Oh!
He didn't get blown up. He got shot.
He got shot!
Yeah, police shot him.
It's
kind of topical, actually.
It is topical. That's intense. I thought he blew up. No, I did not realize he got shot. That's why he's like in the chair like this, huh?
Yeah, he got shot.
I mean, he's definitely dead in that chair.
I guess in the Japanese version, they really show him getting shot.
Oh, okay. I mean, not that I want to see a kid get shot, but I did wish that was like a little clearer.
I think the Japanese extra shots are online. I haven't watched them yet. I'm going to watch them.
Interesting. I'll have to check that out. So there's my favorite shot of the movie. Is the wheelchair floating in front of the flames, because I don't know if their keying wasn't quite right, but the wheelchair is like moving in the flames, and they held on it for like 10 seconds, and I was like, no, guys, get that off the screen. It's not good. So I think that's my favorite part of the entire movie. It's just the wheelchair, him laying in the wheelchair like this and like kind of floating in the fire. It's incredible.
So the aliens, being that they're from an alien planet, are immune to fire. They come out, they bend down, they bring him back to life because...
How did they do that?
Well, man, I have to science everything out for you, Tony.
Just somebody has to, because the movie doesn't. Because
what happens is
they
stretch all their... since they're so stretchy, they can like make microscopic stretches that go inside his body. They extract the bullet, and what they do is they like actually leave traces of their alien stretchiness in there, and they tie off all the little issues. Where there's cuts in the arteries.
Sure,
They tie
suture
those up.
those right up.
They suture exactly, and they do it with their fingers,
So they're basically like the origins of nanotechnology, is what you're telling me.
pretty much.
I love
Pretty
it.
much.
That's great. Now that's great science fiction. I love that.
And so they bring Eric back to life.
I thought for sure they were going to shock him with like his heart. I thought that's what this whole movie was setting up, that they were going to defibrillate this kid at the end, like bzz, clear, poof. And then they didn't, and I was like, I have no idea what's happening right now.
They're just doing alien
They're
stuff.
that seems to be the answer for a lot of stuff. It's just alien stuff. It's fine.
And then the final two scenes are the aliens are made into American citizens,
I have so many problems with that.
and then they drive away in a pink Cadillac, and a big bubblegum balloon blows up, and it says, We'll be back.
And they weren't, which is
And the
kind of
credits-
sad.
Credits roll.
Okay, hold on.
Whew, we made it.
We're not done yet, Dan. We need to
Yes.
talk about...
Next week.
No, Dan! The end of the movie is us making them American citizens?
Yeah.
Those aliens don't want to be American citizens. They want to go home.
Maybe.
Send them back to their home, you idiots. Like, what a weird... The message to me is that we're better than everybody else, and so you want to be a part of our culture.
They don't have Coca-Cola on that planet.
Fair.
They don't have McDonald's on that planet.
That's probably better for them. They're going to live longer, okay? We're in rough shape over here.
All they have is rags, and we put them in these nice 50s outfits. We put them in McKids clothing. I mean, they're living the life.
They're living the life. Do they understand the life that they're living right now? Have they picked up English? Can we communicate with them?
Tony,
What?
if they wanted to go back, one of them would have picked up a speak and spell, and boom, they could have told us they wanted to go back.
You're
you know,
I'm sorry.
E.T., little stupid ass E.T. he's like shitting on our lifestyle by not wanting to stay here because it's not good enough. I want to go back to my magical planet. I want to live with my parents. Your divorced ass, messed up situation is not where I want to be. Right? If Elliot was in a good situation, Eric and his mom and his brother and Courtney and Debbie, they're living good lives. They see this. They this is the life. We don't want to be sucking straws. We want to be drinking Coke, be American dream, baby.
Oh my God, Dan. You actually might have just solved it. Or not solved it, but now that
it's all there on the page, Tony.
It is actually, because so now I'm going back to the beginning of the movie. Is the reason we see them wandering in the desert to show us that them living here is in fact better than where they come from?
This is a comment on the refugee crisis of our planet. They are refugees. They've probably been cast out from the golden cities of the moon that they live on, and these are the religiously persecuted, the downtrodden that America's here to accept.
Well, not anymore, but
not
in
anymore,
the 80s for sure.
Back in the 80s when we were a country that cared about things.
Right, yeah.
It is.
That's interesting. I am actually seeing this movie in a whole new light right now.
If you were paying attention, except during the mine scene, which was boring as fuck, you would have caught all this.
Maybe you're right. I'm sorry. I deeply apologize. But that does not solve what I'm concerned about in making them American citizens, other than they're not going to be accepted. I'm sorry.
Why?
Why?
America accepts everyone.
Maybe in the 80s. You're right.
In the
It's a different time. You're right.
You gotta cast your mind back to the past, back when America was.
I'm sorry.
What it was, and not what it is.
Okay.
Or what someone wants it to be.
Right. Okay. So let's pretend I'm fine with all of that.
Yeah.
What's the time jump, you think? between when everything blows up and when we make them American citizens, and then let them drive a car down the street?
I would say 6 to 8 months.
Okay,
I think that's about how long. That's about how long it takes to go through that process. I think.
Okay, because
I mean, they might have had to send the probe back up to the planet to get necessary paperwork, but yeah, I mean that probe just flies that in a day or two.
It's lickety split. Yeah, you're right about that. It's
And
the
it
fastest
doesn't,
probe ever.
if you saw it, when it's blasting its jet, it's just like kind of.
Yeah.
So it doesn't use much fuel.
No, it doesn't. It must float most of the way very fast.
Yeah. I mean, you saw it. It just, man, it's maneuverable. So it just, it probably flew into that place. It probably didn't even land outside. It probably just
went right in.
Because that's what it could do. I mean, it could do it on the moon.
Technology was way better in the 80s. All right. I quit. I'm done. This was a long episode anyhow, so.
Oh man, that was a good one.
We got to do. What are your final thoughts, Dan?
Final thoughts. I mean, it's a terrible, terrible, terrible movie, but it's a terrible, terrible, terrible movie that you can enjoy because it's just so stupid, and you can have fun with it, and you don't have to care. If you want to go in there caring about logic and storytelling and acting and special effects, get over yourself. I mean, Get over yourself. There's plenty of movies you can go and you can see all that stuff in. There's only Mac and Me that you can see this amount of just silliness, and absurdity, and I mean, they live on a planet where water is like 2 inches below the surface, and they have to use a straw.
And you can just walk on that surface. Don't get me started again.
Well, see, that's the other thing about their feet. Since they're so stretchy, they probably it's like snowshoes. They probably just spread out a little.
Their weight is distributed. Okay.
They distribute the weight. God, Tony, you're just like, I have a criticism. I'm smarter than the filmmakers. No, you're not. You're just a guy sitting in a room making fun of something that's special.
You're making me feel guilty.
Science fantasy.
All right, I'm in.
Yeah, and what are your final thoughts now that I've brought you over to the dark side?
Well, now that I understand everything in the movie, I'm all on board. I think this is a great film with a poignant message. It's
now more than ever. It's about
right.
the violence of the police. It's about refugees. It's about acceptance. It's about caring.
It's pretty good. Now that we've talked about it, I think this movie is really genuinely amazing. It's phenomenal. No, I honestly, it's definitely a fun movie. It's awful. It frustrated me, but it's the only one that we've watched so far that I'm like, yeah, I would watch this again at some point just for shits and giggles.
For the lulz.
For the rowels. Is that what it is? Rolling on the floor. Raffles? I don't.
Oh, raffles. I don't know how to say that word.
I'll edit that one out because I'm not hip.
So now it's time for some positive picks. So hit me with your positive pick, Tony.
Okay, so I've decided I'm going back and forth between movie and TV. So I'm going to alternate each week. So this week I'm doing a television show, quote unquote. It is Netflix's Babysitter's Club. Now,
I saw just like a little tiny clip that was like this, and I was like, I'm kind of interested.
It is genuinely good and interesting, and it's way more than it has any right to be. It's kids TV, sure, it's a teen show, whatever, but it deals with some really important issues, and it's all about friendship and the struggles you can go, but there's a lot of messages in there. It's really good, and the acting is actually pretty strong for kids. I loved it. I thought it was
comedy
really
wise.
Yeah, it's funny, it's cute, it's important, it's smart. Yeah, I thought it was really good. Worth a watch.
I'm going with Dr. Sleep.
Ooh, haven't seen the movie. Love the book.
Oh, okay. I did not read the book, but it's the continuation of The Shining. And it's not so much a horror movie as it's sort of a little bit horror. It's a little bit fantasy or science fiction. It's sort of a Stephen King world where there are supernatural beings, and just really interesting. I thought it was a really interesting, and I'd heard negative things both about the book and the movie,
Sure.
and so I was really pleasantly surprised. I mean, are you going to make a sequel to The Shining? No, you can't make a sequel to The Shining. It's goddamn Kubrick masterpiece. It's a masterpiece of a movie. Is this a masterpiece of a movie? No, but it's a fun, interesting movie with interesting characters. And they did a really good job of it. And it, I mean, it was kind of by the numbers, but in a good way by the numbers. Sometimes you want to watch it, but there were a couple of scenes that were really interesting.
Okay.
That sort of, because there's like the bad people, and the bad people are sort of invading the dreams of the good people. And
yes,
there's some really interesting scenes about that, which is a little bit like Dreamcatcher, which is, he deals with some of the same sort of It's kind of like Dreamcatcher, which I consider to be an underrated classic and one of my favorite movies of all time. It's sort of Dreamcatcher light.
Okay. Did you watch the theatrical release or the director's cut? Because I heard there's both.
Of Dreamcatcher?
No, of Dr. Sleep.
I have no idea. I just watched it on HBO.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Which I assume is just a theatrical release.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, fun one. So I will check out Babysitter's Club for sure.
Do it. Yeah. It's good.
And now Tony's got a pick for next week.
Okay. So for next week, I was really wrestling between two movies. And I'm going to break them down a little bit because I'll probably do the next one in 2 weeks. One of them is just an awful looking 80s movie. And then one of them is the downfall of one of my heroes. And so
is it Freddie Prinze Jr.?
No, because he didn't have a downfall. He gracefully exited the business. Okay. Thank you very much, Dan.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll argue about Freddie Prinze Jr. at some point on this podcast because you'll want to pick one of his movies, even though they're all masterpieces. I figured we shouldn't do another terrible 80s movie right after we did Macamee. So we're going with what I think is considered as the beginning of the end of Eddie Murphy.
Oh, no.
So the movie I want to do is The Adventures of Pluto Nash, which I've never seen, but I need to. Have you seen it?
Ooh. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, maybe I've seen part of it, or maybe I've seen all of it. Because Robert Townsend also made a movie called Meteor Man, and maybe I've seen that. But I feel like I've seen some of it, but so long ago. I didn't see it in the theaters, absolutely.
Yeah.
I might have
seen
it.
Did.
5 to 6 years later, I might have watched it on TV. Part of it. Okay, please.
Well, we're gonna watch it for next week. I love Eddie Murphy.
I love Eddie Murphy also.
So good. So I'm really excited to see what happened. What happened?
Pluto Nash.
Pluto.
Okay, well, we have our assignment for next week. I don't know that it'll be as crazy as Mac and Me, which there was a lot to go, and we even skipped some stuff, which we'll get to on Mac and Me Part 2. We got what is it? The overtime, Mac and Me Overtime, which is an extra 45 minutes bonus stuff. So I guess it's time for us to say goodbye. Say goodbye, Tony.
Goodbye, everybody. Did you come up with a new sign-off?
No.
Dan. Do the old one. Do you think we'll get in trouble?
Well, I will see you next week.
Perfect.
Hey, watch it!